and pulled this out of the guts. Anybody tell me what the fuck, why this is in the guts? It feels like plasticky. It's actually got like a foil backside. Not really sure what it is. But this is the 4th attempt at doing my video today. The first attempt was seemingly going well at first, but then eventually I was dropped down to 6 viewers with 8 likes, because that makes sense. Then I tried to go live, and immediately I noticed that the comments had been shut off. So that was only like a minute long, but you can go watch it for yourself. I know the comments are shut off because at the bottom it says, "Welcome to the chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines." That's where the chat goes. So when people start chatting, that is where it shows up. If that's not there, then I don't see the chat. And when I say the comments get shut off, they get shut off from my perspective. It's not, I'm pretty sure you guys are still able to comment and see those comments coming through. I'm not really sure, actually. I'd have to ask somebody that's been here when I said the comments were shut off. And did they then see the comments progressing after the fact? But after I acknowledged that they've been shut off, did they notice the comments still continued? But the comments have been shut off. Or the comments were shut off on the last video, about 30 minutes in. So now we're on our 4th attempt. Did it's BS again. Doesn't show the live unless I click on the old live, then see your picture badge light up as a live and click that. And yes, they shut them off on your end because I was commenting. Oh, there you go. And the best part is, all of us have been online for quite some time now, right? We've all been, I saw that thing coming. We've all been YouTube users and live watchers and all that for a very long time. My kids watch a lot of videos. I ask them, have you ever seen anybody else complain that the comment section's been shut off on their feed? And no one ever says yes. People think I'm lying because it's not something that anybody else complains about. And it's not like, it's not like it's some weird glitch that just happens sometimes and that's just the way it works and people would just say, yeah, that happened. No. This is something unique to my page. And if it's something that precise, that unique, you know it has to be purposeful. This isn't something that just accidentally happens day after day, feed after feed. So what makes that happen? Well, that's the question of the day right now. If I'm just lying, if I'm just selling porky pies, how does it even benefit me? You know, a couple days ago, I had a video going that had 10,000 views on it. Had like 26 viewers on it when I stopped it. And I stopped it specifically so I could read the comments. It's scary if you think about it too hard. You know, you just tell yourself, oh, it's just this or it's just that, whatever. But to realize really what it is, it's kind of scary. To have an individual target on my back, it's a weird feeling. I do believe that if we are going towards this AI takeover idea, the machines taking over and whatnot, and the idea of being judged on your presentation, on what you put out there. I can't imagine the machines would be like, this guy's a bad guy. I would assume the machines, based off of everything I've done and said, would think this is actually one of the good people out there, who gave up any idea of success by talking about the things that you're not allowed to talk about. Very, very few people talk about it, but the same things I do. Or if they do, again, at the end of the day, they're going to tell you to believe in Jesus, or tell you the earth is round, or chastise you for questioning it, instead of understanding the arrogance in all of it. How arrogant we have to be to believe any of the shit we're given. You allow your arrogance to guide you. And fucking everybody will cry and be like, I'm not arrogant, you're arrogant. You don't believe what you're told, so that makes you arrogant. I guess. But you, unlike you believe that, like I always point this out, but nobody that comes through my feed is ever going to tell me I believe in the JFK narrative. I'm so sick of all you conspiracy theorists out there who, provide all this evidence that something else happened. I, based on next to no evidence, believe the official narrative. It's going to be really, really hard to find somebody that fits that. Don't tell me they shut it off again. Did they shut it off again? Come on, Matt. Give me a test. I feel like they shut it off again. Oh, it worked. All right, cool. I just figured you got quiet. It was weird. Anyway, my bad. See, now I'm like paranoid about it. It's working. Whatever it is working. It's distracting. I even forgot what I was fucking saying. Better safe than sorry, yeah. But it really just does come down to arrogance across the board. Everybody is so arrogant. Nobody will tell me they believe in the JFK narrative, but then they'll tell me that I'm crazy for thinking the earth isn't round. They'll tell you you're crazy for not believing in Jesus. They'll tell you you're crazy for, not subscribing to the God's chosen people narrative. It's like it's such a strange thing to be a human who isn't like everyone else is. Like I don't know how you just go about your day believing like you have a cross around your neck. Like if Jesus ever came back, he'd be like, "Sweet, I'm so grateful to see everybody wearing that symbol of my death." It's such a weird thing. and to be surrounded by it, and to not only be surrounded by it and be such a minority in the big picture, for me to not, for it to be the situation where, like, I'm not the one that has trouble describing what I believe and giving my reasons for why I believe the way I do. You, the person who believes what you're supposed to believe, who's one of the vast majority, 99% of the time, you get upset. And I believe it's because you know what you believe in is bullshit, and you don't like it being put in your face. You know, you want to just go ahead and believe that you're going to go to heaven when you die, just like your dad, just like your mom, just like everybody that's ever been important to you. They're all up in heaven watching you and watching. You want to believe that shit. So you just, I think what you do is you avoid reading it. You avoid actually learning about it, because I don't understand how somebody in 2025, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, believes, reads the Bible and is like, yep, that makes sense right there. Oh yeah, I could totally see how those two sisters, after being offered to the rape mob by their father, would think their father is such a great man, they should get him drunk and get impregnated. Those two, 13, 14, 12-year-old girls had to be somewhere around there if they're still virgins back in those days. But they weren't married off. They were about to be married off, but they weren't married. But they believe their father to be such a good person for trying to protect those two strangers that they were gonna get him so drunk he doesn't remember it, which makes everything okay. Because if the man doesn't remember it, then everything's okay. But then they're gonna wake up the next day and know that they're pregnant, and do it 2 days in a row so each sister can get pregnant. And those people become the Ammonites and the Moabites, who a lot of people think that's where black people came from, the Moabites. And and that means gay people are bad, because that's Sodom and Gomorrah. And that whole thing, just, why would anyone question that, right? Crazy for not going along with the hive mind. Yeah, but it really does, the whole concept of NPCs really does ring true. It's crazy. I remember I was sitting with one of my buddies one time, and we were just kind of sitting there doing nothing. Maybe we were high. Probably we were high. And I remember he was just looking off into space. And I watched him do it for 5 minutes. It was forever. Me and I think there was a girl there or whatever. We were sitting on the couch laughing. And finally it was hey, dude, what are you doing? And he was like, huh? Man, what were you just thinking about? You were gone there. And he was like, nothing. I said, what do you mean nothing? He was, nothing. I said, you're seriously telling me there wasn't any thoughts going through your head for the last 5 minutes? You were just sitting there? And he was like, yeah, it happens all the time. And I just couldn't wrap my head around that. I have to be all right, brain, it's time to go to sleep. God damn it. Stop thinking about shit. There is no time when my brain isn't constantly, thinking about, questioning, looking at. And I don't understand how that could possibly exist, but, the concept of NPCs definitely makes it make more sense. There you go, crackhead. Somebody coming here with the act.il provided talking points. Obviously, I'm a huge crackhead. these crack blunts I smoke. You know, who's going to be that person? Your Y-O-U-R Steal. S-T-E-A-L. Yep. I absolutely just admitted to being a crackhead. You are correct. So stupid. Again, like, other than a Team Jorge act.il character or some reasonable facsimile thereof, how does this make any sense? How could people really be this stupid? But that leads us to Dionysius Exiguus, who, Latin for Dionysius the Humble. You know what's weird is how, like, 90-some% of the people that use that talk about being humble are using it incorrectly. You know, they won an award where everybody stood there and clapped for them. And they're like, oh, I was so humbled by all that applause. Somebody used to end their show with that. Bob Newhart, I think. I'm humbled by your applause. It's the dumbest thing. Like, it's the opposite of being humbled. The last thing a room full of people clapping for you does is humble you. It empowers you. It makes you feel amazing. It makes you feel like you're the center of the world instead of the opposite. But that's just how stupid we've been programmed to be. So Dionysius the Humble was a 6th century Eastern Roman monk born in Scythia Minor. And so what's interesting is, like, his whole, like, story is about him being from Scythia or not from Scythia Minor. Like, it's really weird. They don't really talk about too much of his life, or, you know, like, when it comes to the details. So this is what Wikipedia is really good about doing, is they give you a lot of mundane nonsense details that don't actually have anything to do with the story, or it'll just be stupid shit that doesn't have to do with what you're looking up. Maybe it has to do with the character, but that's about it. And so, is English your first language? And so what you see on this platform that is seemingly, you know, all about giving a book report's worth of information. If you were to look this thing up, this is a good summary, and a lot of times this is the only place you'll find information on this character. But it's a summary that's written in book report format that all you have to do is change some words up, maybe change some things around a little bit, and you have a perfect book report. And that's how Wikipedia generally seems to be. It never really, when it comes to the meat and potato stuff as to how said person came up with said thing, or how, you know, just the logistics of how something happened, they don't like talking about that part. You know, the linotype machine is one of the most, I'd say it's one of the top 3 inventions in the, you know, of the last 150 years. And most of you don't even know what it is, but it's the reason why we had printed media. We had newspapers, but it's the form of printing press that enabled a daily newspaper to exist, and all sorts of other periodicals and shit. But it was a machine that was invented in the 1880s, of course, by a German clockmaker who was approached by some wealthy businessmen and asked to design and create this revolutionary piece of machinery that, you know, it'll say like after the first couple attempts, the thing worked, and within a year, they were in every major publishing house in the country. And you just go, wait, what do you mean after a couple of attempts? Like, how did this guy even begin to facilitate the creation of this, what, uh, um, self-contained foundry? Like, how did this thing create these metal slugs that were then melted down so they could be recreated by the machine? Like, look it up. Linotype, the linotype machine. The fact that you've never heard of it says everything. Hi. Hello. Man, remember when a juice box couldn't be finished in one drink? And so you see this history given of this guy, where this is the man who created the reason why we believe it's 2025 to this day, right? Like, this man is so important to our everyday life, and we don't even realize. I can't believe the level of stupidity in these comments. It's mind-blowing. But it is what it has to be, man. You know, they have to argue something, but nothing I'm talking about can be argued. That's the like, that's the catch-22 about all of this. And it seems like right now they're stifling the feed pretty good. You know, only 9 viewers. If you're watching, like, share, sub, help out. Try to get this going. But this is what they do because this is all they can do. How are you going to intelligently argue anything I'm saying right now when I'm literally just reading you what Wikipedia wants us to read? And at the same time, how are you going to make any sort of intelligent arguments that we shouldn't kill pedophiles, that we shouldn't stop the genocide, and we shouldn't overthrow the Jays that control our narrative? Who's going to make any intelligent arguments to the contrary? Nobody. There's nothing you can say. It's why, if you've been watching this feed for however long you've been watching it, you've never seen anybody come in and actually even shake me. Because nobody can. What, you know, if you come in here and start arguing with me, like, we already know if you come in and start talking shit, it's probably because you're a pedophile. You know, pretty simple. Why would why would anybody oppose the guy who thinks we should kill pedos other than they are a pedo? Why would anybody oppose the guy who thinks we should, you know, sever all connections with Israel and stop accommodating that cult altogether while stopping the genocide? Like, other than the people guilty of doing it and or supporting it, like, if you want to pretend like you're this good person, well, I'm opposed to Israel and I'm this, that, I'm still a J, but I'm opposed to what they're doing. You still think we're all goyim. You don't have to, like, if you really are a good person, you don't stay with the cult, with the idea, just because it's beneficial to you. You go, you know what? Fuck this. I am not a part of this cult anymore. I'm not going to be a part of the Matitza Bipa cult. I'm not going to be a part of the cult that commits genocide. I don't identify with that anymore. Fuck that. Especially because there is no like concrete, good, real reason why you should. It basically just comes down to the perceived, Semitism, the favor that you require. And until you get over that and just, we're all equal, we're all even here, let's make the best of it, well, then you're still just an asshole. So, like I was saying, you end up seeing in these Wikipedia narratives where you'll get a whole bunch of just, this is all about his origins being, is he from Cynthia Minor or isn't he from Cynthia Minor? Is he from Cynthia Minor? Or here, let me start over because I don't think you guys can see it. But starts there, This is what they're called. This dubious assertion, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't talk anything about his his family life, his anything, which they normally have a really good made up little narrative for it, but we don't talk about that. So we're going to jump over to, is it shut down again? I always think when the comment section doesn't talk shit for more than a minute or two, they must have shut it off again. So I don't want to start reading if I'm just going to end up shutting it off and starting again. Nope, there we go. All right. Smoking 2, T-O, much crack. Doesn't even know which 2 to use. Probably because English isn't their first language. Right? You would want to put T-O-O, much crack. But again, it's not your first language, so I don't expect you to get it right. So Dionysus is best known as the inventor of Anno Domini dating. Like, listen to what's presented here. It's really fucking weird. Which is used to number the years of both the Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar. He used it to identify the several Easters in his Easter table, but did not use it to date any historical event. Wow, 9 viewers, right. Strange considering I had 30,000 yesterday. I love when people are so stupidly predictable. So he didn't actually date any historic event with his calendars. This is the Brett Kavanaugh argument. When he devised his table, Julian calendars were identified by naming the consuls which held office that year. He himself stated that the present year was, quote, the consulship of Probus Jr. Hang on a second. The Julian calendar is a solar calendar of 365 days in every year with an additional leap day every 4th year without exception. Okay. The Gregorian calendar is a calendar used in most parts of the world. It went into effect in October of 1582, which introduced it as a modification of and replacement for the Julian calendar. Oh, right. This is the thing. Like, this is crazy, right? So listen, the principal change was to space leap years slightly differently to make the average calendar year 365.2425 days long rather than the Julian calendar's 365.25. Thus more closely approximating the 365.2422 per day tropical or solar year that is determined by the Earth's revolution around the sun. In 1582, they knew that the days were 0.2423 thousandths too long. Or no, it's from to make the average calendar year 365.2425 instead of 365.25. So that is, I mean, if it was 3.425, you would essentially, if you were doing similar to rounding, you would round it to 2.3 or 2.43. So we're saying that somehow in the 1580s, they figured out that our calendar was 3/100ths too long. The rule for leap years is that every year divisible by 4 is a leap year, except for years that are divisible by 100, except in turn for years also divisible by 400. For example, 1800 and 1900 were not leap years, but 2000 was. There were two reasons to establish the Gregorian calendar. First, the Julian calendar was based on the estimate that the average solar year was exactly 365.25 days long, an overestimate of a little under 1 day per century. Like, do you guys understand what's being told to you right now? What technology did they have in 1582 to determine this? How did they know? Who was alive and keeping notes and was like, hey, you know, I noticed that I think this century was a little under 1 day too long. Where does this even come from? What's up, Karen? Always good to see you. I really don't, like, to me, this is the type of shit that's just fascinating. And I don't understand how someone else hears what's being said and continues to just believe it's what it is because that's what you're told to think. By the way, this is a completely locked page, so there is no adjusting it. Somehow they knew that the estimate that the days were 365.24 or 0.25 was off by what equates to less than 1 day per century. Does anybody like, more importantly, does that make sense to anyone else? Does anyone else think that they hear that and they go, no, that makes sense? Because you could easily tell by, you know, what experiment, what possible way could we know that's accurate? Looks like I lost a leg. Oh, man. And thus, a leap year every 4 years without exception. And thus has a leap year every 4 years without exception. The Gregorian reform shortened the average year by 0.0075 days to stop the drift of the calendar with respect to the equinoxes. What? That's just insane, right? And how do you do that? How do you shorten a calendar by a little less than one day hundred every 100 years? I mean, seriously. I'm just trying to think of it from a practical application. What 100-year calendar do you have? And you go, okay, let's erase like 75% of, or yeah, let's erase what, 25% of one of those days. Where does that even come into mind, right? But that's why you see calendars with the two dating system where, you know, because if you include like it going back to, I guess, Anno Domini, then it adds up to be like 6 days or some shit like that. But what would be the point of that other than for confusion? Like, why would it essentially even matter? Who's going to be like, hey, you put this date at the wrong place, and you said that this thing that happened 800 years ago happened in this year, and it actually happened in well, you said it happened on this day, and it actually happened 5 days later. Like, who's even holding that standard? Who's even holding that accountable? If this isn't fascinating to you, and instead you're like, I saw Legos. Like, thank you. Thank you for making the argument for me. Second, in the years since the first Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, which wasn't held in 325 AD according to that, like whatever date they said it wasn't actually accurate, because it was Dionysius who decided that it was 525 AD, which is what we'll find out here in a minute. The excess leap days introduced by the Julian algorithm had caused the calendar to drift such that the March equinox was occurring well before its nominal March 21st date. This date was important to the Christian churches because it is fundamental to the calculation of the date of Easter. This is so weird. To reinstate the association, Jesus Christ. The reform advanced the date by 10 days. Based on what? Thus, October 4th, 1582 was followed by Thursday, October 4th, 1582 was followed by Friday, October 15th, 1582. That is so fucking... That is so crazy. But it has to be significant. There's a school of thought that is convinced we should have 13 months. Yeah, but all of it's ridiculous. Time is a unit of measure. It's not based on the sun and shit. You know, it's not like it's 12 hours light, 12 hours dark. But time is like, seconds are like inches. There are 12 inches in a fucking foot. There are 24. There are 60 inches, or there are 60 minutes, or 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour. These are units of measure. Oh, there's a streak. We have 2 streaks. Remember I told you by the time I was done, there would be streaks in the sky. So it begins. Just FYI, Domini, Anno Domini, Anno Domini. Anno Domini. Let's see what it tells me to say. Oh shit, I don't want to do this right now. I would have to get out of here, and I don't want to get out of here. Anyway, in addition, the reform also altered the lunar cycle used by the church to calculate the date for Easter, because astronomical new moons were occurring 4 days before the calculated dates. So just think about this. Like, this is sort of happening, Council of Nicaea, whatever it may be. How does Jim Smith, in the small isolated village of Pupapapapoo, in the north of Saskatchewan, or wherever the fuck you want to talk about, Tibet, in the mountains of Italy, like in Swiss, in the Alps. How does this all get around to everyone? And they all go, oh, okay, we'll start keeping track of things this way now, and we'll backdate all of our historical records so that it reflects the change, and everybody can be comforted knowing that in 2025, when they look things up on Wikipedia, it's all extremely accurate information. Anno Domini. Anno Domini? Anno Domini. Anno Domini. Okay, whatever. Sounds good. Eternity does not include time, and it's forever. Like, the idea that you would waste your fucking brain power on something so stupid, that's not something you can comprehend. You are just a little blink in the eye, right? You'll be just another person that died one day. Much sooner than you think. Much sooner than you're comfortable with. But to waste your time thinking about that is to argue with somebody over it, like either one of you have any sort of concept of it, is just more of that arrogance that they put on us, and we don't even realize we're doing it. Another speck of dust. It's the truth. And I know you'll say, well, then why are you reading what you're reading? Because this affects our everyday life. I mean, this is just insane to me. To think about that this is as disjointed and far-fetched and flimsy as our history is regarding our date. To not ask questions seems irresponsible to me. Look at me gaslighting my audience. I'm such a gaslighter. You fucking goofy pedos. But if I'm wrong about anything I'm saying, you have the option to easily, prove it. Just pick one little thing that I'm saying, and you explain to everybody what I'm wrong about. I'd love to hear it. Well, and I'm wrong here reading to you what the Wikipedia wants us to know, because this kind of debate separates us from the animals. You'd think it does. That's me, big old gaslighter. Stop asking questions you're not supposed to ask, damn it. You're not supposed to talk like this. You're asking questions I don't ask and can't answer. I mean, this is just so strange to me. To think people had their system of dating, and to think that there was any sort of universal system of dating to begin with. Like, we never think about it or talk about it, but how did all these cultures who, you know, I know history loves to, what's up? You finally woke up? You should still have your phone. Yeah. I love you, dude. Good morning. How'd you sleep? Good, good. He's hating on Christianity. Yeah, absolutely. Christianity's fucking stupid. If you're going to be lighting your gas, I always recommend, there you go. This is just interesting to me. Like, it's so interesting how stupid people respond when they feel stupid. Right? Like, these guys don't know anything about any of this. And yet, I'm supposed to be the inferior stupid one. Yet they can't actually engage in the conversation in any sort of intelligent way, so that triggers, their insecurity, that triggers their embarrassment. And so now they're going to try to get me back for the way I make them feel. They feel attacked. So now they're going to attack me back. And they're going to say whatever they can try to say to bring me to where they feel, because I hurt their feelings. God doesn't need to rest if he has God. I hate Trump, Christianity, Jesus, and accountability. How do those things go together? How does Trump, Christianity, and Jesus go with accountability? Like, those are the opposites of accountability. It's not my fault. The devil made me do it. Oh, I didn't accomplish that. Jesus did it. God picked me to catch that touchdown. God picked me to run faster than everybody else did. He had money on it. God money, of course. But I love how people will say shit like they can answer two questions that weren't asked, and they talk to each other trying to stroke each other off, because again, what can they do? What sort of argument can be had right now? Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss other people. Great quote. That is really great. That is really great. Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss other people. Yeah, I mean, that's literally what we're trying to do here. We're trying to question the ideas we're given. And all we ever end up getting is people wanting to talk about me. It's a strange thing to experience, I can tell you that. Not only do they want to talk about me, they want to make up their own narratives and shit. Put out their own weird fantasies. And it's such a strange thing to experience. And because there is no conversation had, there is no explanation given, you have to try to explain it. I do. I sit here and I try to figure out, like, what the fuck? What could be motivating people to do that? To be the opposition here. You know, we should kill pedos. We should stop the J control and stop the genocide and yada, yada, yada. And you're like, no, I don't like what you're talking about. Like, it's such a weird thing to experience. People act like somebody's forcing them to be here. You know, like there's not literally millions of other options for them to be watching or doing right now. And yet, this is what they do. Like, this is the crazy shit. With ignorance wage eternal war, to know thyself forever strain. Ignorance to your own ignorance is your foe's deadliest bane. Cool. I learned a long time ago, it's my fault, and it's not. It's my fault, and if it's not my fault, it's still my fault somehow. It is. It absolutely is, and that has nothing to do with Christianity. How does one catch a touchdown? It's called football. I'm only seeing my own comments, says Karen. That's strange. Bro discusses other people like Trump. Yep. I keep talking about Trump. Bro is gaslighting. Yeah. You say bro so much that you actually type it out over and over again. That's insane to me. Hey, they were even shouting for some of my content. Yes, they were. It's not a narrative. You are alive every day. We can deduce you have no job or purpose. Says somebody that's here every day. So what is your job and purpose? Your job that you never seem to be at, and I guess you seriously, you admit that you watch me every day, but you don't say why, what the purpose is. Like, it's so strange how you do this. Let's say the same weird object is heading there's some weird object is heading our way to power. They always say that. It's always like that. Every few years, especially when they need a distraction because something crazy, like they're so determined to get us to stop trying to talk about Palestine, not just Epstein, but Israel and Palestine and all that shit, that now they're trying to distract us with a meteorite. Now there's an object heading our way, and like, this is just what they keep doing. You know, there's always something new that we should be focusing on, and not the fact that the person that we identify as the leader shouldn't even be in office right now. Should be doing everything they can to clear their name, while, you know, the 25th Amendment should be enacted. And it's strange that it's not being enacted. But then again, the Leahy law is the same thing. Why isn't the Leahy law being used? It all comes back to the same thing, and that's the problem that people aren't willing to talk about. People aren't willing to see it for what it is, and they just, you know, they believe what they want to believe. And that's the weird part, is like, I understand that aspect of it. But I always want to know, like, why do you want to believe what you believe? You don't really have any evidence for what you believe. you personally haven't experienced most of what you say you believe. And there's lots of evidence contradictory to what you believe, but you don't want to, you can't address those things. And instead of like wanting to be able to say, okay, I believe this, and it's because I've identified all of the holes in the narrative, or at least perceived holes, and I've fixed them. I've answered for them. So I believe what I believe because it's a solid argument. I mean, you don't say that about anything. And you're not supposed to. You know, you're supposed to be super confused. You're supposed to regurgitate a bunch of shit that I always wonder, like, do you really feel that way? And why? Why do you feel that way? What is it that motivates your reflex response to something? It's not like it's a universal response. So what makes you think the particular way that you do? And you would think that wouldn't be such a hard question. That wouldn't be something that upsets people so much, but it really does. Let's see. Supposed to read this, blah, blah, blah. You like Trump? Well, you probably got some pedo shit you don't want people not talking about. The only people I can imagine at this point can overlook what Trump's associated with are people guilty of similar shit. Because anybody else, you know, I find out that you are as associated with pedophilia as Trump is in real life. Like, and I don't have any, you know, there's no excuse made for you. I don't care if you're family, friend, whatever. If I find out that you are associated with this shit, you are immediately cut off. And if I can get you in trouble, I will. And yet, you know, stupidity says, well, because you don't fall for the same side I fall for, you must fall for the other side. Like, it's amazing how continuously, similarly stupid all these NPCs have been programmed to be. Yeah. If you don't support Trump, then you must support Biden. Like, it's amazing how predictably stupid they are. Yeah, it's too bad that I don't have a soundboard that I can record myself saying like those things, and then as soon as you guys say it, I hit the button and it's like, yep, see, predictable, this is what they say. Because they just make the same dumb arguments over and over again. You guys calling them white backs. That's funny. Bro. I can back up everything I say. Now you're calling out fantasies, huh? So this is, I call SWAT on a conservative? Is that what I do? Oh man, imagine being so stupid you have to start making up your own arguments. You can't actually address the things I am talking about. So you start making up your own goofy shit so that you have something to argue. See, he's a Biden supporter. And you can argue Biden. It's so stupid. NPCs are useful idiots. They for sure are. That's why they're allowed to be here. It's not like they make, like, again, the fact that I talk about such serious things and these clowns refuse to engage or address any of those things and constantly try to change the subject and talk shit and all these things, it just makes my argument stronger. That's why they're allowed to be here. Voting is the adult version of writing a letter to Santa Claus. That's amazing. I'm stealing that. That's fucking awesome. That's awesome. And it totally is. You know? After 2020 or 2016, if you still believe in voting, you know, you're a level of stupid that I can't relate. Always interesting. 2016 should have shown you that your vote absolutely doesn't matter. They'll do whatever they want to do, however they want to do it. Being a kid playing a game without the controller plugged in and the older kids get used to this. Yeah. It's totally accurate. It sucks when your kids finally figure it out and then they want to really play. But yeah, you give the kid the controller so they think they're playing. It's another great example. Voting on a local level does matter and does count. No, it absolutely doesn't. You're not gonna let you're not gonna let people like so. One of my first experiences with voting was in high school, and it was my freshman year, and it was the prom king, and they or maybe it was homecoming king, yeah. And the bad kids in the school who were, I mean, they were propped up. They were horribly asshole kids, but they were propped up. The Theos, the Pat McKinneys, the Tony D'Angelo's. You know, it was this group of the bad kids, and they had Theo, and Theo was a man in a kid's body, so he was terrifying. So they had the protection. You know, they were like knockaround guys, right? And Theo was the real life scary version of Vin Diesel. One of the greatest beatdown scenes in all of cinema. But they thought it was funny because one of their group members was this Jewish kid who, by all accounts today, would be considered severely autistic, but was like allowed to drive, was you know, just the thing is, like, on some level you could say it was mean. What's up? Some level you could say it was mean what they did, because they allowed him to be one of them, and they made fun of him constantly, and they teased him, but they all grew up together. They had known each other since they were, you know, first graders and shit. And you know, when you first make friends with the kids, especially when in first grade, his intellect is typical first grader shit. You know, it's not till you grow out of it and he stays the same that it's evident what's going on. But the reality was they were shitty to each other. They talked shit to each other. They were horrible to each other. So the fact that they treated him like one of them, even though they did treat him worse, is still, you have to give them sort of credit for that, as fucked up as it may be. But they thought it'd be funny if Dave Levitt won the homecoming king thing. And so it went all around the school, Let's make Levitt homecoming king. And because of the voting structure, and because it was such a wide margin, they couldn't just pretend like he was close but he lost. Everybody did it. Everybody said Dave should be homecoming king. And so Dave was homecoming king. And I know the popular girl that won homecoming queen was so disappointed, and the popular group that normally wins that shit was so disappointed. The elites didn't like the way it worked, but the commoners actually made it happen. They made a joke of the whole thing. And that's what can happen if we actually have a vote, right? If we're actually allowed to have this unrestricted vote without the electoral college to pick up the slack when we screw up, then Hillary would have been president. 2,700,000 more people voted for her than Trump. But the AIPAC-controlled electoral college didn't want that to exist, so it just didn't. It wasn't part of the script. They tried everything they could to make Hillary look bad in that last few weeks before the election. Even bringing up the idea that Bill Clinton had an illegitimate half-black son, Danny Williams, EY. And that the after all these years, Danny Williams finally surfaces, and they're going to do a paternity test, and the results will come out, the day after the election. It's just, they tried everything. They tried everything to make Hillary look bad to the average white American public. And they still put her in anywhere. We still picked her over piece of shit Trump. Unanimously. And they were just like, nope. And Hillary was like, I know I could go down, live for eternity, and as the first female president of the United States forever and ever, but I'll just disappear. I won't even fight it. Like Trump's going to do in 2020 when he loses. He's going to fight it like crazy. Hillary's not going to do anything of the sort. Matter of fact, her and Bill are going to go on a speaking tour hosted by Ben Stiller, where they make $100,000 per appearance each. And they're going to talk about their lives. They're going to just talk about their lives. So how do judges, sheriffs, and so on get elected? Oh, right, because, there's absolutely no corruption in the local judicial system or the local sheriff's departments. Nah. That's all just election. That's all just regular, just election stuff. And because you can go around and interview everybody and take that average and see, hey, did you vote for this? Who'd you vote for? And see that for sure that person did win by that many votes, according to my calculations. And you do that, right? Just like you debunked Islam, Scientology, Buddhism, Hinduism, Mormonism, every other ism there is, that even the ones you don't know about, including the Native American shit and the African shit and all that other stuff. You debunked all that and couldn't debunk Christianity, so now you're a Christian. No arrogance at all, just smarts. I was watching something. I can't remember what it was. It just popped in my head. It was a weird Pizzagate reference that was out of place on a show, and I saw the clip of it, and I just thought it was really strange how... Anyway, What the fuck was it? It wasn't like it was pointed out as such. I noticed it. But, oh, I don't remember. At the end of the day, it comes down to a thirst for knowledge, trying to figure things out, looking them up, and then realizing how upset it makes people for some strange reason. So we're here on the whole idea of the calendar, right? And it basically comes down to where is it? That the Gregorian reform shortened the average calendar year by 0.0075 days to stop the drift of the calendar with respect to the equinoxes. This was in the 1580s. Like, this is the kind of shit that makes up your history. And you don't know it, but you believe the outcome. You believe what you're told to believe by the same people who tell you this shit. That somehow in the 1500s, they knew that the calendar was off by less than a day every 100 years. And they needed to adjust the calendar to account for that. It's okay. You can come up. That's just so fucking crazy. The stupid Julian calendar was based on the idea that the average year is 365.25 days long. But they overestimated it. Like, it's just so fucking stupid. They overestimated it. It's actually 365.2425 days long. We're talking about hundredths of a day. Thousandths of a day. What technology allowed for that back then? Weed wasn't illegal because it just is. Because the rule of nature was that weed is. People had been, the only reason people voted for it is because they were allowed to vote for it. And when they did, they unanimously pushed it through. But that's because they're allowing us the illusion. They know that we're going to push it through. They're putting forth, do you understand how much money the government makes off of dispensaries? The licenses and all the shit that just goes into it alone. It's like millions of dollars to be able to, and a millions of dollars investment to be able to pay for licenses and all that shit. Before you're even really like considered to be allowed to have a dispensary. Anybody can open up a fucking party store and sell alcohol all day long. But then the dispensary also takes down your license and catalogs everything you purchase every single time you purchase it. Like weed is some super dangerous thing compared to alcohol. You can go buy all the alcohol you want. You pay for it in cash and nobody knows you bought it. Can't do that with weed though. Dispensaries are pretty crazy. But the government makes so much money off of the dispensaries. That's why they're legal. Because we for years had been clamoring and demanding and, stop filling up our prisons with nonviolent fucking weed offenders. And they realized just how much money they could make off of it. And they figured out a way to engineer it to make people dumber. You know, they figured out a lot of different things involving it. So to say it's legal because of our vote is fucking stupid. No one's voted to keep it illegal for any lengthy period of time. I can't imagine the last time weed was on a ballot somewhere and lost. Unless it's like some crazy, goofy ass Bible community down in the fucking South somewhere. Or some, snooty ass individual community. But on a statewide level, no way. No way. Nobody thinks lives should be ruined because somebody wanted to smoke a joint. Because that's what it comes down to. Regular, everyday people's lives were being ruined over wanting to get high. Alcohol is absolute poison. Alcohol should have been illegal a long time ago. But because weed wasn't legal, they were able to milk alcohol and ingrain alcohol into our lives so much that we would fight them again if they got rid of it. Two things that grow everywhere and are easily cultivated and would completely destroy the alcohol industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the so much of the fake psychiatry and all that other bullshit. If people were simply allowed to grow and cultivate their own marijuana and poppy plants, it would revolutionize things. Why aren't the prisoners growing their weed? Why don't prisoners grow weed? Huge farms of marijuana that, if they grow it, they can have up to an eighth a day. And then all the rest of it can be distributed to patients and all that shit. But everybody that's in prison is now given an eighth of weed every day. Do you really think that wouldn't absolutely change the entire culture of prison? It would completely, get rid of the violence and allow for philosophical discussions and all of the good things that prison is supposed to be. If people were just allowed an eighth of weed every day, that was, again, grown by the prison, that would change everything. There'd be so much less violence. There'd be so much more education and changing of perceptions and all that shit. Like, it would be huge. Another one of the things that I'm going to do when I become president in 2028. Anno Domini. Anno Domini. I mean, I think this is just so fascinating. I just keep wanting to get off this page, but I keep seeing the numbers, the dates. 1582, they figured out that our calendar was a little more than a day, a little less than a day too long every 100 years, according to Easter calculations that they somehow knew. Like, if you can calculate the days and the sunsets and all that shit, you can say exactly when the sun's going to set 10 years from now. That's not natural. That's not just a natural way things work. That's not how nature works. Nature has variations. If that was really the case, then shit like Old Faithful would pop, and the exact same amount of water would come out every time, and the droplets that would come out of it would fall in the exact same places every time. That's how accurate, that's how programmed nature would have to be able to accommodate, you know, the knowledge that in 10 years the sun's going to set at exactly this minute. So this whole idea of the, the calendar being set on the equinoxes and the Easter, based off Easter and the equinoxes and all that shit. I mean, this is, how do they have this knowledge in 1582? Where is this astrological knowledge coming from? From the telescopes that are basically new? I mean, actually, they hadn't really been invented yet, because Drebbel is the reason why we have the telescopes we do. So maybe some form of telescope had been invented, but the telescopes we use today were invented by Drebbel. Or at least, he's the reason they were invented. Look at these dumb comments. Seriously. Nobody, you guys have no opinion on any of this shit? You think all of this is just fucking, just normal shit, huh? Not everyone has a positive experience with weed. It does cause anxiety and panic attacks. For sure. And nobody has to have the weed. Why would that be? Why would you automatically go to a negative point? Right? You just immediately try to find some sort of negative that is easily accounted for. Like, yeah, that's easy. If there's no fucking, if you don't want the weed, you don't have to have the weed. That's very simple. And there's all different sorts of ways that it can be distributed. Maybe you don't like smoking weed, but maybe eating a small dose would mellow you the fuck out. Who knows? I know if we decided to stop giving Israel $3.8 billion cash payment, one lump sum every year, the first fiscal month of every year, and we decided to just put it into that. Let's just put it into the prison reform system. That would be better use of that money. That's on the low end of the list for me. The creating a state-of-the-art pedophile hunter group is the top of the list. But that won't require $3.8 billion every year. That won't even require $3.8 billion to get started. But that's the number one priority I would think for that money. So back to Dionysus is best known as the inventor of the Anno Domini dating, which is used to number the years of both Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar. He used it to identify the several Easters in his table, but did not use it to date any historical event. When he devised his table, Julian calendars were identified by naming the consuls who held office that year. He himself stated that the present year, quote, was the, quote, consulship of Probus Jr. So, essentially, this is basing the year not off of any sort of mathematic equation or anything, but off of the consulship. Let's see, what is it? The consuls was the title of one of two chief magistrates of the Roman Republic, and subsequently also an important title under the Roman Empire. The title was used in other European city-states throughout antiquity and the Middle Ages, in particular in the republics of Genoa and Pisa. then revived in modern states, notably in the First French Republic. The related adjective is counselor, consular, from the Latin consularis. The usage contrasts with modern terminology, where a consul is a type of diplomat. A consul held the highest elected political office in the Roman Republic from 509 to 27 BC, because they were counting down anyway. And just to think, like, to go back and you know, these historians from, you know, even like we're going to talk about with Dionysus, where he decides it's 525 AD. How did he go backwards? What year did they think it was when what we call, you know, from 509 to 527? Well, they weren't counting down. In 28, they weren't like, yay, I can't wait for 27 to exist next year. 27 is going to be my year. Like, that's not how they thought of it. They weren't counting down to a 0 point. So they had to have multiple systems of dating back then as well. So to think our current record was able to gather their information from whatever date they said it was, and then calculate that into a minus date in our BC calendar, like, that's like nonsensical. That's so weird. Councils were elected to office and held power for 1 year. There were always 2 councils in power at any time. Okay, so again, now it's based on when the council was in office. But what happened if that council was removed or they died? What happened? Like, and we're talking about like multiple times a year, right? Like, it doesn't coincide to an actual date, or does it? Which he also stated was 525 years, quote, since the incarnation of our Lord Jesus Christ. Incarnation. A person who embodies in the flesh a deity, spirit, or abstract quality. One of a series of lifetimes that a person spends on earth. Oops. That's interesting. Like, the incarnation. Incarnation, in its most common religious usage, refers to the concept of a deity or spirit taking on a physical form, especially the human form. That's weird, right? So, since they created it, basically. Like, this whole thing is just so fascinating. I'm getting tired, so I have to do it again tomorrow, probably. But so he stated that it was the consulship of Probus, which he also stated was 525 years since the incarnation of our Lord Jesus Christ. How he arrived at that number is unknown, but there is evidence of the system he applied. Think about that. Our entire dating system is based on an unknown. That doesn't seem off to anyone else. He invented A new system of numbering years to replace the Diocletian years. The era of the martyrs is a method of numbering years based on the reign of Roman Emperor Diocletian, who instigated the last major persecution against Christians in the empire. It was used by the Church of Alexandria beginning in the 4th century AD, and it had been used by the Coptic Orthodox Church of Alexandria from the 5th century until the present. It has been used. This era was used to number the year in Easter tables produced by the Church of Alexandria. Diocletian began his reign on November 20th, 284 AD, and the reference epoch, day 1 of the Diocletian era, was assigned to be the first day of the Alexandrian year, first Thoth, the Egyptian New Year, or August 29th, 284 AD. So, but AD wasn't invented yet. So what did they call it? Are you guys getting what I'm saying here? They didn't call it 284 AD because AD wasn't invented until 525 AD, according to this guy. What year was that? In the Diocletian years. So in the Gregorian calendar, if it's August 29th, 2025 AD, in the Coptic calendar, it's 3 Masori, 1741 AM. Anu Martium, I guess. Like, this is weird. In the beginning, man invented God, and it all went downhill from there. Jews, Christians, and Muslims all worship the same God, and it shows. Well, they all belong to the Abrahamic cult, so yeah, of course. Like, it's weird how people are going to argue certain aspects of things like they don't understand what I'm saying. Every religion has different calendars, also like Buddhist, Muslims. I'm not sure that was OT birth. Yeah, but nowadays everyone's on basically the same calendar. And apparently they have been for a long time. So how did that happen? Christianity was Julius's answer to how to try and save Roman Empire from ripping itself apart. I mean, like, you're arrogantly saying one thing, but you're not acknowledging what's being read to you. There is no arguing this. This is the way it's supposed to be, according to them. So, wait, let me go back here real quick. Transition to Anno Domini. So, when Dionysius Exiguus of Eastern Romans, Cynthia Minor, inherited the continuation of those tables for an additional 95 years. In the year 525 AD, he replaced the Anno Diocletiani era with one based on the birth of Christ, Anno Domini. His main goal, or Anno Domini. His main goal was to marginalize the memory of the tyrant who persecuted Christians. The Anno Domini era became dominant in Latin West, but was not used in the Greek East until modern times. Doesn't give you anything. Alright, let's see what this says. The Anno Diocletiani era was not the only one used by early Christians. Western Christians were aware of it, but did not use it. Most Roman Christians, like the pagan Romans before them, designated their years by naming the two consuls who held office that year. What a weird thing to then think again. It was all consolidated into the modern history that we now know of and adhere to like it's concrete. Slaves should obey their masters. Jesus Christ said that. As they would him. Let's see. The Romans also used the Ab-Udi Condita AUC era. Its name is Latin for from the founding of the city. However, the AUC era was hardly ever used outside historical treatises. Like, the more details they do give, these vague details that they give, the more open the story becomes, and you have to ask again, how did it all just get consolidated? Where everybody was just like, okay, well, I'm going to start calling it this and say it's this year, and I'm going to go ahead and backdate all the history that I have to reflect this new change so there's no confusion in 2025 when some doofus in Detroit is reading this shit. Eras that began at creation called Anno Mundi, eras became the dominant method of numbering years in the East until modern times. And remember, they didn't have the concept of zero yet, according to what we're supposed to know. So, if there's no concept of zero, every time there's a 100-year cycle, they go from 1 to back to, like, if it goes from like 870 or 8801, does it go the next year is 799, or is it 800? See what I mean? Like, if there's no concept of zero, how do they do that? See, it's interesting because, like, between me and a lot of the guys I see, there's that one guy who's always talking about sacred geometry, and he's got these really cool videos and whatnot. But so many people are telling you how to think based on a portion of the history that they've chosen to believe. They think so much of the other shit is fake, or so much of what we're told is fake. But then when it fits their narrative, they run with it. And to me, I'm just as dumb as everybody else. I'm not sitting here trying to pretend like I know this shit. I'm just reading it for what it is, and then asking the questions that come to mind. Eras that began at creation, called Anno Mundi eras, became the dominant method of numbering years in the East until modern times, such as in the Byzantine calendar. Anarius of Alexandria. And I always think it's strange that we're just okay with these characters that have these one names. Anarius of Alexandria. There were no other Anariuses in any of the years that person was alive, or, you know, how did so many people have names like that? How were they even identified? Again, it's more of this history that we're given that seems like the inputters into the chat GPT when it was first put together were lazy, and they didn't expect us to think on this level. Most people with cherry-pick supporting evidence pay attention to only the side that suggests that they are right or the version they wish would. Right, well, that's the difference here, and I don't think the credit is given to where, like, I don't know what this shit's gonna say. I just look it up, and it could easily say, you know, really obvious, easy narrative that makes me look like a fucking fool for even asking the question. And, you know, I learned my lesson. But that never seems to happen. Every single time I look something up, it just adds to, like, it adds to the what the fuck about it. Ananias of Alexandria, a monk who flourished at the beginning of the 5th century, placed the epoch of his world era on the 25th of March, 5492 BC, by counting back 11 532-year Paschal cycles. What are Paschal cycles now? The Paschal cycle in Eastern Christianity is the cycle of the movable feasts built around Pascha, Easter. The cycle consists of approximately 10 weeks before and 7 weeks after Pascha. 17 weeks is a long fucking time. The 10 weeks before Pascha are known as the period of Trident, referring to the liturgical book that contains the services for this liturgical session or season. This period includes the 3 weeks preceding Great Lent, the pre-Lenten period, the 40 days of Lent, and Holy Week. The 50 days following Pascha are called the Pentecostarian, also named after the liturgical book. The Sunday of each week has a special commemoration named for the gospel reading assigned to that day. Certain other weekdays have special commemorations of their own. The entire cycle revolves around Pascha. The weeks before Pascha end on Sunday, i.e. the week of the prodigal son begins on the Monday that follows the publican and the Pharisee. The publican and the Pharisee. I didn't know Republican. I mean, I guess I should have. I didn't ever think publican was a thing. But I guess publican is a thing.
Let's go, come on.
What?
Mom called me and said she wants both of us to come outside.
Did you tell her to STF you?
Yeah. I was trying to hit her through the phone, but it didn't work.
Good boy, that's my son. We hit women in this house, goddammit.
Yeah.
Release the Epstein files. I agree, I guess. I don't really know what the Epstein files consist of, but I think we need to release the tapes.
Someone's in there.
No, Joe's in there. I think we need to release the list of names on the tapes. I don't know what the Epstein files actually is. The Sunday of each week has something. This is because everything in the Lenten period is anticipatory of Pascha. Anticipatory, sorry, of Pascha. Anticipatory. Oh, it's been a long morning. Starting on Pascha, the weeks begin on Sunday, i.e. Thomas week begins on the Sunday of St. Thomas. While the Pentecostrian closes after All Saints' Day, Sunday, the Paschal cycle continues throughout the year until the beginning of the next pre-Lenten period. The tone of the week, the epistle and gospel readings at the Divine Liturgy and the 11 Matins Gospels with their accompanying hymns are dependent on it. I still don't really understand what it is. Like, I guess it's just, okay, so it's a 17-week period, basically. So, counting back by 11,532-year Paschal cycles from Anu Diocletiani, Diocletiani, 77, so that's a year. From 77 of that year itself, 4 19-year lunar cycles after Anu Diocletiani the First. Okay, so 4 19-year lunar cycles. So, well, it would actually be like 76 then, wouldn't it? And think about this. Like, think about, nobody has phones. Nobody has any sort of communication devices. Nobody has a concept of zero. Nobody has like cars, and yet somehow they have these concepts of 19-year lunar cycles, and it's actually March 25th 5492 BC. Like, how are they facilitating these discussions? What room are these guys in that has the record books that they're then referring to and going, okay, so see, and then we go back to here, and then this event was this amount of time ago, and then this says this was this, and like, what's going on here? I mean, I guess I think about it. The way I think about it, to me, is almost kind of boring, right? Like, I'm really focused on the boring details. What books were they reading? What methods were they using? What building were they in? How was that building lit? Who built that building, obviously? How were they communicating these things with each other? It just seems like it's such a weird, it shouldn't be so open-ended. But again, like, to think, okay, so there's all these different, how does everybody already believe that it's this year? What system is in place that's telling people what year it is to begin with, all over Europe? Is everybody abiding by the same calendar? And if they are, why? And then you find out, well, actually they're not. A lot of them have different systems of belief and different ways of referring to things. So then how does all that get synced up? Who is putting all of those different things together, calculating, okay, so this time was actually this time, and this time was this time, and this seems like a much more advanced situation than we're told could have existed back then. And so so Diocletiani the First, regarded as a civil rather than a religious era, It began on the first day of the Alexandrian year, August 29th, 5494 BC. Are we serious right now? Who is keeping these? Like, think about who we're talking about here. These are people wiping with their hands and shit, right? These are people who would live in a little tiny hut with a thatch roof, and then they would, either put on their like top hats and shit, or their, I guess, robes. Back then they would put on their white robes, and they would get on their horses, ride to their big giant, pillars and marble and still exist today building, where they would do all their magical calculations somehow using some sort of system of math that doesn't have a concept of zero. And then they would park their horse in the horse car park, the horse parking lot, where again this horse who requires 10 gallons of water a day would just be taken care of while they were going all philosophical with their other philosophical friends and calculating the years based on this year and that year and this cycle and that cycle and my wife's cycle, and like it's so fascinating to think, like I said this before, the smarter you are, the dumber you are. The more of this you can regurgitate without asking any questions, the dumber you sound, and you just don't even realize it. Like, this is fucking stupid, man. This is fucking stupid. And what has the system done to earn your trust to the point where you believe, you have faith that amongst all this confusion, our system that continuously lies to us is absolutely telling us the truth about all this, and there's no need to even question it. It's August 29th, 5493 BC, and that's just it. Boom. This Alexandrian era was the preferred era used by the Byzantine Christians, such as Maximus the Confessor, until the 10th century, when the Byzantine era, which had an epoch of 1st September 5509 BC, became dominant. Both eras used a version of dating creation based on the Septuagint. And then, so now we would have to go to the Septuagint dating system, and you'd be reading that, and you'd find out, well, this is based on this. And then you'd be reading, and this is based on that. And that's what you end up doing with all of this. It's just so fascinating. Let's see what wonderful things he said. I think its non-random point is estimated historical time is skewed, which is correct to point out because we have changed our own estimations several times. Actually, the best educated individuals who study history would tell you that it is likely that human advancement can't see it. Sorry, there's something on the screen. Fluctuates between cultures and time periods. It's not a new point to make. LOL. Yep. It's just weird. Why would it bother you that I'm doing it? What motivates you to be here to begin with? To be like, nah, you should stop talking about this stuff. Somebody else has already made this point before. Yeah. Seems strange that it affects you so much. Just because somebody else has talked about something before doesn't mean that it means we should never talk about it again. You really are a fool. My favorite part is when you read aloud what's in your phone and you don't even have a clue how to pronounce the names or places. Right. Because everybody knows how to pronounce all that ancient fucking Greek stuff and, Byzantine Empire and all. Yep. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm sure this troll is just a whiz at ancient pronunciations. And I'm sure that you know all this stuff already. So, why would you even be here? Or if you do know it, why don't you get to telling me what's wrong or how it makes sense? I mean, this is just crazy. This is fucking stupid. So it was one of these Diocletian years when he just decided that it was going to be 525. From around the year 500 until his death, Dionysius lived in Rome. He translated 401, not 402, not 400, 401 church canons from Greek into Latin, including a bunch of other shit. That's what he did. He translated things. How did he translate stuff? What was his method of translation, and how was he educated in the ability to translate? Seems like that's an interesting position. And it seems like that person then has a lot of power. Like we're talking about power to affect things that probably still get practiced to this day. This person could have just said this translation said this or this translation said that. And who would be wise to it? Do we have the original manuscripts that he was translating? Do we have his translations of it to compare side by side? And then somebody today can be like, yeah, he was right, every single word. Where does all this come from? These collections canonum Dionysiae had great authority in the West, and they continue to guide church administrations. Dionysius also wrote a treatise on elementary mathematics, because of course he did. The Rosetta Stone, hell yeah. He signed up for it, the online program, got the CDs. Or he had access to the fantastic Rosetta Stone somehow. Let's see. The author of the blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that. We were in his origins. Now we're on Dionysius. Okay, so he invented a new system of numbering years to replace the Diocletian years that had been used in an old Easter table because he did not wish to continue the memory of a tyrant who persecuted Christians. Literally, this random guy didn't like the idea that the system that was being used was based on somebody else, on a guy who persecuted Christians. So in some unknown way, he just came up with the idea that it was 525 AD, and let's go from there. That's just, and it worked. This random person did this random thing, and all of the nobles and all of the king's horses and all the king's men were like, okay, let's just change everything up, and then let's backdate everything so people in 2025 know it's all true. It has been suggested that he arranged the numbers so that leap years would be exactly divisible by 4, and that this new table would begin one Victorian cycle, i.e., 532 years after his new epoch. Like, really? Really? These guys back then have concepts of 530 some years, and then they have access to all the same sort of information we do today, if not more, that they were able to then calculate all this stuff using their fucking abacus or whatever. Like, what are we talking about here? Again, no concept of zero either. Evidence exists that Dionysius' desire to replace Diocletian years with a calendar based on the incarnation of Christ was to prevent people from believing the imminent end of the world. At the time, some believed that the second coming and the end of the world would occur 500 years after the birth of Jesus, which was when? When, according to these people? Because if his whole thing was to change people's perception and make it less scary, by saying it was 525, aren't we right around that 500-year mark after his birth? Whenever his birth was said to be? The current Anno Mundi calendar commenced with the creation of the world based on information in the Greek Septuagint. It was believed that, based on the Anno Mundi calendar, Jesus was born in the year 5500, or 5,500 years after the world was created, with the year 600 of the Anno Mundi calendar marking the end of the world. Anno Mundi 6000, circa 500 AD, was thus equated with the second coming of Christ and the end of the world. And imagine the Y2K fever that shit was back then. Yeah, 500 years. But then to think, okay, so then he says it's 525, and everybody's like, oh, okay, well then I guess it hasn't happened. So, like, it's just weird. And then that's the end of the Anno Domini portion, and now it just goes to Easter tables. In 525, Dionysius prepared a table of 95 future dates of Easter, 532 to 626. Let's see if we can figure this out. The Septuagint or the Septuagint? I don't know how to say it. I don't really care. If I'm getting Septuagint, I guess. I don't know how that's said. That's how it looks phonetically. And from 532 to 626, and a set of rules, argumenta, explaining their calculation, computus. This followed a request by Pope John I, possibly influenced by the fact that the then current Victorian table gave an Easter date for 526 of April 19th, which was the 22nd day of the moon. What? I mean, what the fuck are we talking about? I'm trying to come fight you. I want to come fight you. Who is that dumb? Who is that dumb? You're mad because we're talking about what? Stuff you don't understand? Is that what it is? Like, what has you so mad you want to fight? I want to fight you because you're reading stuff and I don't like reading. What are you talking about? What kind of stupid person says shit like that? Then we can preach after. Oh, okay. Who gives a fuck about you? Why do you matter in the slightest? I'm sorry. That's not something you want to hear or maybe are used to hearing, but you don't matter. You goofus. How do we even know anything ever happened? Exactly. You don't. You're told a narrative that you choose to believe, mainly because, I mean, look, people want to fight you if you don't believe it. Think about how stupid that is. But that's all it ever comes down to. You choose what you believe because I guess it fits what you want. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get how anyone believes in God and knows that the church consistently gets caught raping children. And God does nothing. That God is literally doing nothing about the Palestinians right now. That the chosen people are dropping bombs on the tents that they have because all of their homes and shit have already been bombed to bejesus. And that's not good enough for Israel. They're now dropping bombs on people in tents. And you think that's like, you think your God's just like, okay, man, that sucks. Sucks for those poor children that are starving to death, eating his popcorn and shit. Brother, don't call me brother. You were reading, then swearing. Has nothing to do with what you believe in. I woke up an hour ago and I'm just trying to run a fade. I think you're Y-O-U-R scared. Is that whatever you need to tell yourself to feel like you matter? Does that make you feel like you matter? Because the reality is, and I know this might be hard for you, I nothing you. I don't like you. I don't hate you. I don't fear you. I nothing you. You're nothing. I'm sorry if that bothers you. I don't know why that would bother you, but the fact that I'm such a something to you that you need to matter to me that much, like that's just weird, but you might want to think about that. Uh-oh. 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 Here come the hammer. Thank you. Have a great day. I am off topic. You are right. I just like pointing this shit out because you have to, it's all part of it. This is the defense mechanism, right? This is the system doing what it can to try to disrupt and interrupt. And people have to pay attention. Like, why would this make sense any other way? If what I'm saying, because, you know, a lot of this, there's no, like, official Trump signed document validating what Guy Williams said is true, blah, blah, blah. That's not it. So there has to be some sort of validation of what's being said. And that's what a lot of this is that validation for people that might be on the fence. Because if I'm wrong about something, instead of coming into the feed and telling me, hey, you're wrong about this or you're wrong about that, we have these clowns coming in here talking about, I want to fight you. Like, seriously, who's going to do that? The system is so desperate to keep us from talking about this shit that they're doing this kind of stuff. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway. Easter tables. This filed the request by the Pope. Possibly the fact that current, which was the 22nd day of the moon, in a previous embarrassment, this table had given Saturday, April 24th, as the date of the Greek Easter in 482. Oh man, those people in 482 that said the Easter was on Saturday, April 24th, boy, were they embarrassed. Can you imagine like how embarrassing that would have been for the people in 482? So much so that it's recorded in history that in 2025 I can read about how the people in 482 were embarrassed because it wrongly said that Easter was on that day. I'm not actually really sure what this is. Oh, we've got some talking points. We've got some talking points. Note well, note well that only the first 9 arguments are by Dionysus. Arguments 10 to 16, as well as the second paragraphs of 3 and 4, and the third paragraphs of 9, are later interpolations. In what? It doesn't even, like it says, you know, this followed a request, possibly influenced by the Pope, by the fact that the current Victorian table gave an Easter date of 526, April 29th, which was the 22nd day of the moon. In a previous embarrassment, this table had given Saturday, April 24th, as the date of Greek Easter in 482. Note well that only the first 9 arguments of what? Of the table? Of is that what we're talking about? The Dionysus prepared a table of 95 future dates. That's not a thing. Like, that's not what we're talking about. And a set of rules explaining their calculation. Does that mean in this set of rules only the first 9 arguments are by Dionysus? Arguments 11 and 12 imply that these were interpolated in the year 675, shortly before Bede. Bede was an English monk, author, and scholar. He was one of the most known writers during the early Middle Ages, and his most famous work, Ecclesiastical History of the English People, gained him the title the Father of English History. Well, what the fuck is this? This will be something we do tomorrow. He served at the monastery of St. Peter and its companion monastery of St. Paul in the kingdom of Northumbria of the angels. Oh yeah, he's this guy. Yeah, that guy. When you think about like what we were capable of actually doing back in the 600s and shit, what they show us some of the paintings and especially the architecture and shit look like, to think that this is the best picture we have of this guy, that's the best we could draw back then. We could calculate the fucking 532-year cycles and shit, but we couldn't draw a detailed person. The Venerable Bede writing detail from the 12th century codex. So from the 12th century codex. So is that the 1100s? So by the 1100s, we could absolutely draw a lot better than this. This is where I got to yesterday, and the Easter tables are just too long. I'm exhausted. I'm done. I'll have to do it again tomorrow. So if you want to finish this, come back tomorrow, which I'm sure most of you will. Until then, go get your free download. www.the-bilderberg, bilderberg-group.com. It's free to download, free to listen to, free to enjoy, free to share with people. It'll ask you how much you want to pay when you click download. You can donate, that would be really awesome. Or you could just download it for free and share it with people. That's all we ask. I'm also going to leave you a link to Hollywoodism, the most important video ever made. It's everything I'm saying, just explained from their perspective. And it's not meant to be that. It's meant to be like a flex on their end. But if you just pay attention to what's being said, it'll explain everything. I'm also going to leave you with a link to 3 of the music videos on Facebook. Go like them, share them, sub them. Like, share, and sub this. Help out. Do what you can. Stand up to the system. And most importantly, you pedophiles, you kill yourselves.